So, hi, new guardians. My name is Vicki Brail, and I have been a guardian forever. As a matter of fact, my number is 72. So you could tell that I've been doing it a long time. And I'm here today to offer some answers to some of the questions we think that you might have as you become a new guardian. Welcome to the family of guardians. We're all here to help you, to participate, to mentor you. Do not hesitate to call FSGA or any of the guardians in your area and ask for help. That's what we're here for. And we've had good and we've had bad experiences being a guardian, and we can help you through the process. Some of the questions we're going to be asked and answered today are from my own experience and from asking other guardians what they needed to know, what they wanted to know, what would have been good for them to know as they started their practice of guardianship. So here we go. One of the most important things, I think, in the top 2 or 3 of importance, is for you to remember that this is your job, this is your work, this is not your life. One of the things that draws people to become a professional guardian is their compassion for other people, their interest in helping people, their ability to look at the wide scope of what people need, both for personal and fiduciary, and to be able to help them. But what happens a lot of the time, certainly what's happened to me and all of the other professional guardians, is that we often get caught up in the human aspect of it, and we forget that we need to have boundaries, that we need to remember this is our job, this is our work, and it's not our life. Now, that doesn't mean that your life won't be impacted by being a professional guardian. You will get called on a Saturday night when you're out with your family having dinner, and you will have to drop everything and go to a hospital. You will get called while you're on vacation unless you have a great setup of people to support you, and you will have to make phone calls. But you will have to learn how to separate the fact that being a guardian, while it's a 24-hour day for you, you need to leave room for your life, your family, your friends, yourself. Self-care is one of the things that professional guardians are not very good at. You need to look for self-care. So when you ask me, well, how does that work if I'm on call 24/7? Just like you have a schedule and you know when you're going to do home visits, when you know you're going to do paperwork, when you know you're going to go to the dentist, you need to put in your schedule on a weekly basis, downtime for yourself. And for all of us, downtime is totally different. For some of you, it may be reading. You may just want to take a few minutes and take a book and go someplace quiet and sit and read. For some of you, it may be going for a long walk or going to the gym or going ice skating or going skiing, depending on where you are. So you need to figure out what that is, and you need to put it in your schedule, literally written down. However you write down your schedule. I'm an old-fashioned person, and I write it down with pencil, unfortunately, in a book that I open up, and I write down my schedule, my weekly schedule. And the reason I write it in pencil, of course, is because I'm a guardian and things change. You need to be flexible. But you need to write it in every week, every day. And at the beginning, it's more difficult because you're going to be floundering a little bit. You're not going to know how much time certain tasks take. But please, I assure you that it is of utmost importance for you to schedule time for self-care, remembering it is a job, it is your work, it's not your life. The next question people ask me is about compassion. How do I find compassion for my wards, for their families, for the situation they're in, and yet do what I have to do? Some of the things that we're asked to do as guardians are very difficult. We have to make end-of-life decisions for wards that may not have been able to put anything down in writing, that may not have family, that may have families that are acrimonious and going back and forth, and we may have to make hard decisions. No, not we may have to, we will have to make hard decisions. You need to have compassion for your wards, and you need to have compassion for yourself. How you find that compassion is that you do your research. When you have a ward that you have to make end-of-life decisions, or you have to move them out of a lifetime home with memories and you have to move them into a different facility, you need to think about their heritage, their religion, their age, where they're from, where they were born, what their family situation is like. As you make the decision, all of these things need to come into play as you're making decisions and you're moving forward with these hard things. Remember, we stand in the shoes. The first part of guardianship is standing in the shoes of the person. Secondary to that is in the best interest. So what that means, for those of you who might have a question, well, what's the difference between standing in the shoes and best interest? Standing in the shoes is very simple. It's a simple process. You need to do, your first line of guardianship is, you need to do what you believe, what you know, what you've experienced, what you've researched that that person would want. So as an example, if the person is Jewish, for example, you need to find out how religious they are, because when a religious Jewish person dies, they need to be buried within 24 hours. So you need to find out those kinds of minutiae, those kinds of details about your ward, so you'll be able to show compassion and stand in their shoes, making that kind of decision. Now, the difference between standing in the shoes and best interest is, what happens if a person wants to stay in their house? I want to stay in my house. Please don't move me, please. But they're falling. They're self-neglecting. That's the reason you've been called in. That's the reason there's a guardianship. And they need to go to some different kind of care, a facility, or they need to have aides and they don't want them. That's where best interest comes into play. So there's a balance at the beginning between standing in their shoes, which is the first line that we try and do, and best interest, which is what we have to do in the end to make sure that our wards are taken care of and they're given everything that they need that we possibly can do. When you show the compassion to your wards, you have to think about compassion for yourself too. You're making very hard decisions. How do you know that they're right? And what do you do when it's a hard decision that may not be a decision you would make for yourself or somebody in your family? How do you feel good about yourself? How do you have compassion for yourself? And that's something you need to work on, something you need to go to other guardians for. That's part of the self-care, is feeling good about yourself, giving yourself a break, taking a deep breath, and allowing yourself to know that you're doing a good thing. So many times when I meet somebody and I tell them what I do, they say, "You're such a wonderful person. Bless you for doing this. Oh my goodness, I couldn't do it." I can't tell you how I jump back. It's such an alarming thing to think that somebody would think that, because I've been going through the day and doing what I thought was right. And so we need to show ourselves that same kind of compassion as we're moving forward. Now let's talk about some nuts and bolts of being a new guardian. Picking an attorney. Sometimes you really don't have a choice. An attorney is already assigned to the case, or a case comes from an attorney's office and you know that you need to stay with that attorney. As a new guardian, that's a very important decision that you have to make. Do you stay with an attorney who has referred a case to you, or do you move to another attorney? The recommendation is, if at all possible, because remember, this is a job, this is your work, this is a business, for you to stay with the attorney that referred the case to you. but that's always your option, of course. What I look for in an attorney and what you need to look for in an attorney, so the question is, what do I need to look for? This is what you need to look for. You need to look for an attorney who's very smart. You want a very smart attorney. You want an attorney who has a lot of experience in guardianship. You want an attorney that has a good relationship, a positive relationship with the court, who knows the judges. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have a new attorney or a younger attorney. What it means is you need to look at the trajectory of their career and know that this is what they're going to do. One of the things that I find most important in my choice of an attorney is I need an attorney who's going to cover my back. So there's some things that I do exceptionally well as a guardian and some things I'm not as good at. I want my attorney to be really good at the things that I'm not so good at, and I want them to remind me. I want them not to be annoyed if my paperwork is not turned in on time. I want them to be there when I have a question for them that perhaps I should have known, but I want them to be able to answer it. So they have to be able to cover my back. They have to be smart, smarter than I am, I always hope. I want them to have a good relationship with the court. I want them to be able to know what a guardianship is and what a guardianship is going through. Another thing that you might want to find that's really important in an attorney is a remembrance that you are the client. So the attorney is there to help you. The attorney will be there for you. You'll be able to call them. But one of the questions that people always ask is, what is the role of an attorney? An attorney is not a co-guardian. An attorney is not a care manager. An attorney is an attorney, and they have to only meet those requirements. So if you have questions about this attorney or that attorney, my suggestion would be that you ask the other guardians in your circuit. A very important part of choosing an attorney is personality. You need to have an attorney that you get along with. You know, there's some of us who are easygoing and we can get along with anybody, and there are some of us who are not. I'm a not. I have certain requirements for my attorney and I want them to be able to meet them. So you have to be able to have a comfortable relationship with your attorney. And most importantly, in your comfortable relationship with your attorney, you have to be able to work well with their staff. People ask, well, why is the staff important? The answer to that question is their staff is very important because a lot of times they know what's going on, they will do the paperwork, they'll be able to give you access to your attorney. Relationship, it's very important. So now we move to the question of relationships. What kind of relationships do you need to have? Well, obviously you need to have a relationship with your ward. It's very important for you to meet with them on a regular basis, as you know. Sometimes more than other times. Some wards take more time, more energy, more access than others. So you need to work with them on a regular basis. Another person you need to have a very good relationship with, or a relationship, is with the family. Now, some families, it's impossible to have a good relationship with them no matter how hard we work. But that would be an important thing to work on, to have a relationship with the family. For some of us, a relationship may only include a text. It may include a written update, but that's important to share the life of your ward with the family. If you feel that that's an impossibility, that you feel it's destructive for you to have that relationship, you need to talk to your attorney, and perhaps you might need to get something in writing, a court order or a letter of interest to the court explaining why you have chosen, why you feel it's in the best interest of your ward not to have a relationship. Again, we go to relationships between your ward and their family. That's a decision that you're going to have to make. You're going to have to see how the family interacts. You're going to have to see why you are the guardian and the family is not. You're going to have to see how the ward responds after a visit, or how the ward responds when their family doesn't visit. Again, if it's acrimonious or you feel that it's not in the best interest of your ward to have contact with your family, please speak to your attorney and go to the court and talk to them about it and see if it's appropriate or not to get a court order relieving you of that responsibility, at least person to person, to have your ward have an in-person visit with their family. Of course, COVID has changed it, but we'll see how that resolves. Other people that it's imperative you have a good relationship with, of course, are doctors, the aides at the facilities, any aides that you have coming into the home. Build relationships with home health agencies, with your pharmacist, with the pharmacist that takes care of your ward. You need to have a relationship. Go into wherever you're going to have a prescription filled, whether it's somebody who's connected with FSGA and will send the medication to the house, or you go to your local CVS or Walgreens. Go in, introduce yourself to the pharmacist, and let them know that you are responsible for this person and you want to make sure that all of the selections of medications, that the pharmacist is on top of it and can let you know if there's any contraindications from what one doctor prescribes and another doctor prescribes. Again, having a relationship with the primary care doctor sometimes is difficult if you're in a facility to actually have a physical interaction with the primary care. I encourage you to do that. Of course, if you can't, there's Zoom, there's telehealth, there's communication. The same with hospitals. It's really imperative that you start building relationships with the care managers and the social workers in the local hospitals that you will be using for your ward. Paperwork. I have so many questions that people ask me about paperwork. Paperwork is not my favorite thing. It's also not my best thing. Paperwork, completion of paperwork is imperative. The first thing that you need to know is, by statute, there are guidelines that you must meet. There are certain requirements, certain kinds of paperwork that you must fill out, an annual report, for instance, an annual accounting. But there are other kinds of paperwork. If your ward is collecting Social Security of any kind, there will be requirements from Social Security somewhere down the line. So please stay on top of your paperwork. It becomes a really difficult task if you get very behind and you have to catch up. Because you're catching up, you're playing catch up every day, staying on top of your wards. Now, for those of you who are new guardians, and this seminar was directed to new guardians, you may not have a large number of cases yet. So you may feel like you have a little breathing room. Hopefully your practice will grow and you'll be able to have a large practice, and you'll be happy that you stayed on top of your paperwork. There are all kinds of programs that you can use. There's doing case notes on a regular basis. What we do in my practice is, when we're leaving, seeing a ward, either we're leaving their house, we're leaving the facility, or we're doing phone conference, whatever it is, we stop ourselves and we make notes, either on our phone or our iPads or handwritten. And even if it's not the turn-in care note, what it is, it keeps us remembering that we have to do it. We try and encourage my staff to turn in notes at the end of the day for everything they've done, because everything is fresh. But if you can't, try and keep your care notes at a reasonable place. Some of the billing programs have an ability to have some care notes included on them. Be careful. Some of it is very personal, it's private. So you'll have to determine what can be put in a care note and what can't. Again, you need to look at the statutes on an ongoing basis. Your attorney can help you with that, and you can see all of the things that are required for you to do on a quarterly basis, a monthly basis, and of course the annual reports. When you're doing your annual reports, I find it very helpful. The question is always, how do you get them in on time? Well, in Miami-Dade County, where I am, getting them in on time is always an issue, no matter how early we start, but we try. So in November, remember, in Miami-Dade, annual reports are due April 1st. However, 3 months before when your annual report is due, my suggestion is that you contact the doctor's office, you make the appointment, and you make it known that it's going to be for an annual report. Oftentimes, I have sent a copy of the annual report to the doctor in advance to let them know what to expect. The problem with that sometime comes is the doctor fills it out, but it's not in good time for the annual report. Remember, it has to be within 3 months of the annual report. So you need to just keep plugging away. You need to go to the annual reports. Another thing you need to remember is if you work with a care manager and your care manager goes to some of the doctor's appointments, I believe it's really important for you to go to the annual one to really discuss with the physician what's happening and to include your ward in as much of the decision making and as much of the questions as can happen when you're doing an annual report. Separation of funds. Separation of funds means that you have accounts, checking accounts, restricted accounts, unrestricted accounts, trust accounts, able accounts for your wards, and all of them need to be separated from your business account and, of course, obviously your personal account. And I say obviously because, excuse me, it has come to the attention sometimes, especially a new guardian that doesn't have a lot of account or doesn't have a lot of input into their business account, might put some initial monies in with the idea that eventually they're going to change it. My suggestion is, my strong recommendation is that if you're going to have a ward, every single account needs to be separated out, every restricted account and every unrestricted account. The next question is, what do you do until you get the money? So that's always been a big issue. You're appointed as a guardian. They've told you that there's money. You need to access the resources. And in the meantime, the ward needs to eat. The judge has put a stop on all funds, as should be done. And the ward needs to eat. We need to pay for electricity. We need to transfer them to a facility. Who's going to pay for the aid? Well, there are several ways to do that. One of the ways is when you accept a guardianship, talk to your attorney about putting in an emergency petition allowing you to access an amount of money that you think and your attorney thinks would be appropriate for the first month to put in an unrestricted account just to pay those bills. And then when you do the budget, you'll see what's appropriate. The other thing which to me, that is the best way served, but that doesn't always work. One of the things that I have found over years of being a guardianship is a system in the court. It's called non pro tunc, which means that the court authorizes spending after the fact to reimburse you. So I have, in fact, and this is not the best way, but it's an alternative, and one of the ways that you may come across as you become a guardian is that you pay for it out of your operating fund with the idea that you're going to be reimbursed. Now, if you decide to do that, my suggestion is, highly recommended suggestion, is you speak to your attorney first. to make sure that in your circuit, the judges are comfortable with that, the judges have allowed that, and to make sure that it's very restricted what you spend. So if somebody needs money for food, I've never had a judge turn down my request to be reimbursed for items that I purchased at Publix. That doesn't mean it can't happen. So you need to be well aware. I have a special fund set aside in my operating account to pay for emergencies. I would consider that an emergency. In Miami-Dade County, an emergency petition sometimes does not get to the court within what I would consider an emergency time, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and the person needs access to funds because of a personal emergency. So I suggest that you have funds available. I've even had a judge say to me, well, you're a guardian, you need to pay for that. Well, no, I don't need to pay for that, but I think in operating a smooth guardianship practice, that's part of the deal. Who can I go to when I need help? FSGA is here for you to answer any questions that you have. There is a mentoring program. There is a program, an informal program. Come to the conferences, go to your local meetings. There are guardians there with experience that can tell you, don't go down this path, or this is the exact path you need to go down. If you have any questions, please forward them to FSGA and somebody will be happy to answer them. I will be happy to answer them myself. We wish you luck. We know that you will be successful if you keep in mind that self-care is important. This is a job. You have compassion for yourself and you have compassion for your ward. Thank you.